Hi, I'm Simon from Hope Woodturning, and I'm going to show you how to turn a natural edge vase. I'll mainly be using the 1/2 inch Crown Cryo bowl gouge and also the multi-tool, which is a little 6mm carbide cutter to actually do the inside, and then the negative rake vase for cleaning up on the inside. So the first job is to start cutting away some of the bark. I'm going to try and leave a natural edge top. This piece is maybe a little bit too long, so I won't use all of it, maybe just this part, but I'll see how it turns out as we start to shape, etc. So the first job is to start taking away the bark. Now we have to be very careful to try and keep the natural edge on this end, so what I tend to do is make that my top, so I make sure it's the right way around and I mount it on the lathe. And then we start cutting from this side and working our way up to get a nice clean cut on here. So with anything natural edge, you always start by sort of turning the speed down and just build up the speed slowly. Very easy to do with variable speed. And just take that up as fast as you can safely go. So in this case, it's about 1600 RPM. Now make sure everything's fully locked, and then with the swept back bowl gouge we can just start leaning in like so. This is against my body, and we're ensuring that we're getting a nice clean cut on the bark. So I'll just speed up a little. So I'm just going to stop and have a look and make sure that we've got the bark on here, and that's probably good enough. We'll trim the top off when we turn it around, so I'm going to leave that much on there. Sometimes it's worth just putting some thin cyanacrylate glue to keep the bark on. I'm not going to worry this time for the demonstration, but if you really wanted to keep that bark on, now's the time that you'd just run some thin glue into there to make sure that you keep it on. So let's just move that a little bit closer there. So I'm going to continue taking some of the waste away. We can turn the speed up just a little bit now because we've taken the bark away. So I'm just working out roughly my shape and where things might be and where to actually put the spigot. As you can see, some of that is waste on there. It's not the final shape yet, I've got a bit more shaping to do, but I just want to work out how tall that is and where to actually put the spigot on the chuck hold. So I'm going to go somewhere about here. Have my calipers to get the correct size. Just over. Yep, that's good. With a nice clean edge on here. And I'm just going to use my thin parting tool just to cut down. Can't go all the way through. We have to stop short and just use a saw just to cut the last little bit off. As soon as you start to hear that vibration, that's the time to stop. Now that I've got my saw, I'm just going to release that off a little and just cut that waste away. Just get the knockout bar. These little trays here are really handy. And I'm going to use some gripper jaws because we're going to be doing long vase work. So I'm just going to get that mounted up. I'm using some gripper jaws on the stronghold chuck. Again, I do like to go from one position to the other. Make sure that that's fully tight. And I'm just going to move the tailstock completely out of the way. Now, because I've remounted it, I'm just going to turn the speed back down again and build the speed up to a safe speed. Oh, it's a little bit out, but we haven't done any final shaping yet, so I'm not too worried about that. I just want to get a nice clean cut across the face. Okay, so I'm just going to check out the bark. Again, if you wanted to keep that on, you could use some thin glue in there. I'm just going to trim up this side on here and just do a little bit more work on the finished shape so I know how far to drill the hole. I'm just trying to get that really nice curve there where that natural edge is. Now we have to leave quite a bit of meat there in order to allow for the hollowing. You can't make that too thin at this point. I do want to make that thinner. It's a bit of a trade-off. We need to try and get the shape so we know how deep to go, but we mustn't make that too small. So as a shape, I'm reasonably happy with that. We'll just do some finishing cuts now. So I'm just going to go over to the straight grind, which is on the other side of there. And I just find it easier and better, a bit more speed, to use the straight grind for my finishing cuts. That's great, nice bevel rubbing cut. Cuts it nice and clean. There might be some bevel rubs on there, but that will sand off quite easily. So we're going to look at the inside. The first thing we're going to do is just actually take the centre core out. You could use a drill with the tailstock, or you could use a auger for drilling the centre out. If we're going to use an auger, we just need to make a little cone in there, just put my spindle gouge in. So, just put a small V cut in here. We'll turn the speed down. So these you really want to be using around about sort of 600-ish RPM, 6 to 800. Get the rest at the right height. A little bit faster. And as they start to cut on the centre hole, there we go, pull away. You have to keep clearing the straw. But it is a very quick way of just taking the centre out. You could use a bit of tape. I'm just going to put my thumb on there, so we want to go down about that deep there. That's it. So it wobbled a little bit on the inside, but that's okay. At least we've taken the centre out, and that will actually make it easier to use the multi-tool. I'm just going to get the multi-tool into a handle. I'll just lock that down. So 16mm bar, 6mm cutter, which looks very small, but will actually cut very, very nicely. So a little bit more speed. These carbides like to cut a slightly high speed, around about sort of 2000 RPM. But just a little bit high, let's just drop the rest down. Now to begin with, it's always best to tip that over at 45. It reduces the cut and makes it safer. But when you get used to it, you can open it up. And hopefully you can see it takes timber away actually quite quickly. So I'm just going to get in position on the rest on the end here, and maybe start to speed up a little. Nearly at the bottom. I'm just going to move the rest in just a little bit, but the majority of that is taken away now. You can see we've gone right down into there, probably about that sort of thickness at the moment. But the next stage is just make a nice clean cut on the bark, and I'm just going to use the gouge to do that, to blend this top edge in. Just swap that over and just use the swept back bowl gouge. just get a much cleaner cut, especially on the bark. You could use the carbide, but I think you would actually get a better cut with the bowl gouge, just on the bark area. Once you've reached down, you can go back to the carbide tool. We'll just move the rest in just a touch. The bark starting to come off, so for safety we'll just take that off. As I said, if you wanted to keep the bark on, if it's dry like this, then perhaps you could use some glue just to keep the bark on, but we've still got the natural edge, so I'm quite happy with that. So we'll go back to the carbide tool. Just getting rid of most of the waste that's on the inside there. Okay, so with my bowl calipers, although they're also okay for these type of vases, we can actually measure down and actually see where we are. So at the moment here we're about 7mm, about 6mm here, 7, a little bit thicker on the bottom, so there's a little bit more left to do on there. So I'll just do that to begin with the multi-tool, and then I'll show you the long reach vase negative rake scraper. So you can see this tip, little 6mm tip. It's very good at taking timber away very quickly. Let's just give that a quick measure. 6mm, 7mm down there, and then just round the corner. So we're nearly there. So I just want to introduce the long reach negative rake scraper. Which is this tool here. I'll just pop that into a handle. So this is designed for this type of work. One where you can get down the side and to the bottom and cut in one operation. Because it's a bigger cutter, you can get a nice rounded bottom, and it will also cut the sides very well. And because it's a negative rake, it just makes it very easy to use. You could also use a shear scraper. The only trouble is with a shear scraper is it doesn't cut the sides quite as well as what this would do. It just cuts slightly better on the sides, but you could use a shear scraper also. So again, this likes the higher speed. And nice and gently, we're just going to bit of vibration because it's getting quite thin. Perfect. I'm just getting that last little dimple out. So we'll stop and just have a look. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we've got a nice finish in there, nice rounded bottom. So that's ready for sanding. So you could use the Pro Sander on the long reach bar. Just another little tip I want to show you. It is possible to make your own sanders. I just use the replaceable neoprene pads for the arbors, and it is possible to make your own sanders to get in there. So I'll just do a very quick bit of sanding to show you that. I use the Indasa Velcro bat, find it really good abrasive. It's actually best when you get a pack like this to actually just staple the ends, and then it sort of stays all together. Very roughly, just cut some strips there. Start with the 120, like so. Yeah, so I've just screwed these onto a bit of wood. Obviously when they get worn you can just replace them. These are not too expensive to buy to make your own sanding sticks. Of course there's other ways like using a Pro Sander to actually sand in there, but not everybody wants to buy a Pro Sander. You could do it by hand, but it becomes a little bit dangerous, especially with natural edge. So I like to make my own sanding sticks so my hands are out of the danger zone. Speed wise it's best to sand at a lower speed, especially when you're hand sanding. So I go down to maybe 1200 RPM, something like that. The arbor moulds to the bottom. Like this, very easy way of making your own sanders and getting in and sanding the bottom of the bar. Also coats with the natural edge, okay? Of course I'd normally go through the grits. I've just given it just a quick sand with 120 just to show you how it works. But yeah, that's feeling pretty good, nice and smooth. Yeah, so what I'm going to do first is actually get that sanded on that part. Then when I start making this thinner, if this starts to wobble, it's already sanded. So I'm going to make that the next job to do. This abrasive has already done 2 projects. Indasa lasts quite a long time. Because I'm using the rotary sander, I'm going to turn the speed up slightly so it spins. I like to stop after the first grit, just to make sure I've got all the heavy marks out. Maybe just a tiny one in there, which I'll get out before I continue. Just want short, positive bursts. You've got to be careful not to overheat. Short, positive bursts. That mark should have gone. So I'll just quickly go through the grits. I like like the new 57mm arbor. It just works great. It's just the right size in between 72 and 47. Yeah, perfect. So that's all sanded. We'll have to do a little bit more here once we've done our shape. Don't quite know what we're going to do yet. We'll just make something, see what it looks like. Bit of shaping at the bottom. Normally I'd use a skew just to get a nice clean edge. You could also use the Hope detail tool just to get down and get that nice and tidy. Just in there. Again on this, it just helps to get a nice clean edge. Then I'd normally just sand and blend all of this in. May just have to use my hands just to get into this detail at the bottom. Just going through the grits, now going down to 400 and then finally 600. Last one. Perfect. Yeah, good. We're going to part that off. I'm going to go down so far and then just use the saw just to finish up. start to watch out in case it wobbles. Just starting to wobble, so I'm going to stop. Okay, not my best work, but hopefully it's just showing you how the long ridge negative rake works. Just a little tip there with the sanding sticks that you can make yourself also. Thanks for watching.